Hello everyone! The purpose of this video is to walk you through doing a multiple conditions Python program. This is similar to your Project 5, actually extremely similar to your Project 5. If you can follow what's being done in this multiple conditions programming lecture, you should have no trouble with Project 5. And this is module 3 of CSC-120. So I'm in module 3 right now, and you can see the folder here for multiple conditions programming lecture. There are a couple prerequisites that you need to have in place if you want to do this exactly the way I'm doing it. I want to call your attention to this material on GUI pop-up message boxes with Python. This folder has the steps that you need to complete in order to add PyQt5, which is a module, to Thonny. So I'm going to pop into there real quick just so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so if I click into adding PyQt5 to Thonny, you'll notice it says step 1 in Thonny. Up at the top in Thonny, you'll click on Tools and then Manage Packages, and it'll bring up a window that looks like this. And in the area where it has for you to type the search, you need to type PyQt5 and then hit the search button. When you do, this will show. And you'll notice that I have an install button here. Once this has been installed, once you've clicked the install button and this PyQt5 has downloaded and installed in your Thonny, this install button will change to an uninstall button. So if you click on Tools in Thonny, then Manage Packages, in this empty area here, type in PyQt5, hit the search button, and then click the install button. That will then, you'll see these screens pop up as it's downloading PyQt5. It'll download PyQt5 zip, and this process could take up to 3 or 4 minutes depending on how fast your internet is. Once that's completed, your screen will have an uninstall button. So you need to do those steps before trying to use this GUI pop-up message box. So just word to the wise that has to be done in order to show a pop-up message box. So back to the multiple conditions programming lecture. I'm going to click into there, and you can see that this little example is to create a shipping calculator. We'll have a program. Our program will ask for the weight of the package, and when the person keys in the weight and hits return or enter, it will then evaluate that weight and display a shipping message. For instance, if I typed in a weight of 910 pounds, the program should display a message, cannot ship. Likewise, if I just typed in a weight of 10 pounds, it would say ship by air express. So we will need a series of conditionals, that is if statements, and if ELIF, and else structure here. You should have read about that in the lectures on if statements and conditionals. So how do we approach this? Well, we've got 901, we've got 501, we've got 100, and we've got 0. You would not believe what I see people turn in for this. They'll check for greater than or equal to 901 and less than something. Then they'll go here to this next example and they'll type in greater than or equal to 501 and less than 900, and basically they just work themselves into a tither trying to do this, and it's really not that way if you approach it right. Each if statement expects a Boolean condition. So we had in CodeLab Boolean conditions that we had to write. A Boolean condition evaluates to either true or false. So there's only 2 possibilities with each of these if you do it right. So let's see if we can structure this the correct way. Okay, so here's our table over here, and you can see that I have 901, 0, 100, 501, and so on. Always start with the open end, or what we call the unlimited end of the set of conditions. So our first breakpoint here would be 901. The next breakpoint would be 501. And the next breakpoint would be 100. Okay? So those are our 3 conditions. And basically, anything 901 and greater is going to be cannot ship. Anything 501 and greater is going to be shipped by truck. Anything 100 and greater is going to be shipped by air. And then what we're left with after eliminating all the rest, what we're left with is shipped by air express. So what would those conditions look like in a program? Well, greater than or equal to 901 is what we'll be checking our weight against. Okay, you notice I'm drawing this out before I ever start writing any code. So greater than or equal to 901, that will handle everything 901 and up. We'll have an else if, and our next condition would be greater than or equal to 501. And our next condition, after we've eliminated these 2, think of this as sawing pieces off of a board. If this is all one big board here, okay, and we saw this part off with our first if, then we're on the else if part, and we handle this part and saw that part off of the board, and then saw this part off. What we're left with is our 0 to 99. So let's put this last condition in here, greater than or equal to 100. You see where I'm getting that off of our table. Okay, and then this is everything else. Ruled out everything else. Okay, so that's the way we're going to structure this. So we can have this set of circumstances here that would be anything 901 and up. We have another circumstance here, anything 501 and up. We have another circumstance for shipped by air that's 100 to 500. Oops, I want to make that a different color. Okay, and then lastly we have, when we've ruled everything else out, It'll be shipped by Air Express. And you notice I started with the open end over here, the unlimited end. We can't have a package that's less than 0. It would be lighter than air. It would be floating up. So we can't have anything less than 0. That helps us when we're writing our program. So we've drawn this out. We'll start at the 901 at the top end and rule this stuff out. Then we'll rule this stuff out. And then we'll rule this stuff out. And you can apply this approach to your Project 5 as well. So I'm going to start up Thonny here. I don't have, let's see, I do have a Thonny going. Okay. We'll start a fresh Python program. And again, I've already been into Tools and Manage Packages, and I've already installed PyQt5. If you hit search, you'd see I have an install button here. Okay, so you know that your program is going to have some comments at the top. Every program in the class gets comments at the top that says what it's got to do and all that. So I'm just going to put a reminder here. Okay, and then we'll continue. So first thing let's do is get the weight from the user. You notice I'm putting a comment in here so that folks can understand what I'm doing. Okay, so how do we get the weight? You may remember we had the input statement. The input statement returns a string. Now, one thing about that, we can't do math with a string, so we're going to have to convert this. I'll call it weight in. That's a good variable name for Python. Equals, there's my assignment. Input, enter the shipment weight. Okay. So when this runs, it's going to pop a message down here in my shell window, and we'll be able to see what happens. So let's just save this program and do that. So I'm going to save as, and bear with me here while I find an appropriate spot on my flash drive to save this. I have a folder for each semester out there. So CSC-115 module 3, we'll put it right here. Notice I'm naming it reedy.py. Save that. So now we can run this and make sure that it's going to do what we want. So when I hit run, did you notice it's popping the message there? Enter the shipment weight. And Python is waiting on us to type something in. So if I type in 100, the program's over because that's all we did. Okay? So next step, we need to convert that weight into a number. Okay? And I'll just assume that we're going to use whole pounds. So that would be an integer. So convert the string weight into an integer. That's what we're doing. I'll call this weight equals int is the function. Remember, this function will take whatever's inside the parentheses and convert it into a number. So our weight variable is going to end up with a number in it. Okay, so when those two lines run now, we're going to have a number in weight, whatever the person keyed in. So let's start our if statements now. The form of an if statement in Python, also known as a conditional, is if, and then we will have some Boolean condition, and then we'll have a colon. And then everything that's part of the if statement will need to be indented underneath there. Okay? So, what was our condition? Well, if we look back here, our condition that we said we would start with is greater than or equal to 901. So, weight has a number in it. Our relational operator, greater than or equal to 901. And what is it that we're supposed to do when that happens? Cannot ship, right? Is that what it was? Yeah, this is cannot ship. If we look at our table here, cannot ship this item. Ship by truck, ship by air, ship by air express. We can go ahead and put those into our table so that we don't have to remember that. Okay. Next one is ship by truck. Next one is ship by air. And the last one is ship by air express. Okay, so we've got that all laid out for us now, where we can go back to our Thonny program. Okay, so if its weight is greater than or equal to 901, let's set a message variable up. Our message is going to be cannot ship this item, right? I'll put an exclamation point there. All right, so if we want to do an else if in Python, there's a short way of doing it. It's ELIF. So that's the same thing as saying else if. So if we rule this part out, okay, that is, I'll close this one. If we rule this part out, we rule this out, then what we're left with is all that. That's what our board looks like after we've chopped this part off, because we're on the else part. If it's not greater than 901, greater than or equal to 901, then it must be less than. So we don't have to worry about that part. So weight is greater than or equal to 501. Does everybody see where I'm coming from with that? We're handling this part now. Okay? So, similarly, message equals, and we're supposed to be shipping by truck. Okay? ELIF. Okay? Now, we've eliminated these two if we're down here at the else, and we're ready to handle this situation. Greater than 100. Greater than or equal to 100. Okay? Now, coming back to this, remember, we've eliminated these. We've eliminated this already. That's why we can just say greater than or equal to 100 and get away with it. Now, your Project 5 has letter grades that you're going to calculate based off of numeric grades. If you put ands in those if statements when you don't need to, you will lose points on the project. So just making sure you understand, you're making the computer do extra work when it doesn't have to if you put an and in here, because we've already eliminated this stuff. Okay, so message equals, how are we shipping this? Let's go back and look. Ship by air. Okay, now if we've eliminated everything else, we've chopped all this off of the board. Everything else has to be air express. So we don't even need an if statement to handle 0 to 99. If you remember, 0 to 99 shipped by air express. We don't even need an if statement to handle this. What could we do? If it's not one of those other situations, then it's just else. And that is it, folks. That is the whole thing. We can print out our message just to see and run this program. So let's try it. Enter the shipment weight. Well, just to prove to you that I don't need any ands and I don't need a final if here, I'm going to type in 50 pounds. And what does it say? Shipped by air express. If I run this again, if I type in 101 pounds, what should that be? Shipped by air, right? You see that it's working every time. Okay? So that's the way that you can do this program, such that you see how simple it is when you draw it out and apply the Boolean logic to it. Okay, let's do a pop-up message box. So I printed the message, but let's pop the message up in a window. So we need to first download that Qt message box right here. You see where I'm getting it in Blackboard? Okay, it's available a lot of different places in Blackboard, but I'm going to right-click that file. Now, it's always best to use Firefox for downloading stuff. I see more people have trouble with Chrome and getting files saved in the right place. I'm going to click on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point to qtmessagebox.py, going to right-click, and I'm going to save link as in Firefox. Okay, here's my Reedy program that we just created, and I'm going to save that Qt message box file in exactly the same folder. And just to check, here they are, Qt message box and the Reedy program that we're working on. Okay, so I've got those saved in there now, and here's my Reedy program from Qt message box, import star. Now, this is going to copy the code that's in this Python file. Notice I didn't put a py on it because we're using it, we're importing from Python. You don't put the .py there. This is going to copy all that code in right here where we are in our program. So don't put this import at the top. It'll mess things up. It'll mess up your input statement. This won't work right. Put this down at the bottom, just like I'm doing. Okay? Right before you're going to pop the message box up is where you want this import. Okay? Next, I'm going to actually capture the button that they click. You don't have to, but it's kind of nice to know if they clicked OK or cancel. The function that is defined inside here to pop up a little window is called message box. Notice the B is capitalized there. Okay, so here's the way it works. the first thing you put in there is the title that's going to be at the top of the little window that pops up. So shipping message would be up here at the top. Okay, then you put a comma and what you want to show inside the message box. Okay, we have our message in this variable called message. So if I put it right here, it will show inside that message box. And then just to prove to you that we can get the button that was clicked, I'm going to print that at the end so you can see it. So, some reminders. Put these two things together. Don't put the import up at the top of the program or you'll mess this up. Okay, let's run it. Here we go. Enter the shipment weight. Let's do 40 pounds. Look what popped up. Shipping message, you see it? That came from right here. And shipped by Air Express comes from the message part. When I click a button here, this will actually print which button we click down at the bottom. So I think I'll just click the cancel button just to be different. You see what printed? So that's the whole example. Remember, in your project 5, a lot of people lose points because they forget to print the whatever the message at the end of their program. See a lot of people lose 10 points for that. I see a lot of people lose 10 points for forgetting to put the comments at the top of the program. So that's how to do the multiple conditions. Your project 5 is grading. So you have to decide what the letter grade is based on their numeric grade. So think about that for a second. We're on the 10-point grading scale at RCCC. So 90 to 100 is an A. If you get a 105, it's still an A. Okay? So think about how you would structure that here. Draw it out. Do your conditions. And then drop them in here. You may have to add a few else ifs. Remember that the very last thing when we've eliminated everything else, that would be an F, wouldn't it? Think about that. Anything here would be an F. So I'm going to leave that with you. I hope this helped, and good luck with Project 5 and multiple conditions.